The chamber has no light. That is the first condition of the protocol, and the most important. You cannot study acoustic fear response in a species that can visually locate the source. Give them light and they find the emitter. Identify it as a speaker array, and the test measures curiosity, not fear. Take the light away and every registered species in the compact behaves the same way. They stop, they listen, and then they move toward the nearest wall. Not the source, the wall. The solid, silent, definitive boundary. What the reflex is actually doing, our team concluded years before I inherited this work, is building a map of what is not the sound. Everything quiet is safe. You find the perimeter, you press against it, and you wait for the sound to go away. That is what biology does when it cannot run. It locates the absence of threat and occupies it. I am Sorath Vel. I served for 19 years as a xenobehavioral stimulus analyst in the Compact's Acoustic Response Division, Assessment Annex 7, Verathan Station. I have administered the Lure protocol to 41 species across 11 research cycles. I administered it to a human subject on the 3rd day of the 38th cycle, and I have not administered it since. I took a posting in documentation. My supervisor did not ask why. The human's name in the registry was Subject 41. His given name, which we had on file and which I did not use during the study, was something short. 2 syllables, a hard consonant at the start. I noticed it because it sounded like the tap of a tool against metal. He was of medium build, middle age, unremarkable physiognomy by compact standards, meaning I would not have looked at him twice in a transit corridor. The intake physician had cleared him with no flags. He had the resting heart rate of a species accustomed to physical labor, and the eyes of a species accustomed to watching. The observation chamber is 9 meters by 9 meters by 4 meters high. The floor is flat composite, the walls are acoustic damping panel, and the single entry hatch locks from the outside once the subject enters. There are no furnishings. The speaker arrays are recessed flush with the ceiling at 9 positions, a grid, each one addressable individually from the control partition. The partition is a one-way acoustic glass, which means we can see out and hear everything, and the subject sees a wall and hears whatever we choose to play. Standard operating temperature, standard atmospheric mix. No variables the subject could use to orient by smell or air current. Just the chamber. Just the dark. Just the sound. I had my assistant, Drevith Oln, in the partition with me. He managed the playback console. I observed. We ran the introduction tone first. A neutral, medium frequency pulse. 2 seconds on, 3 seconds off. No biological analog. Every species responds to this the same way. Head turned toward the source. Brief stillness, then movement away. The purpose is not to frighten, but to confirm the subject is tracking acoustically, and to establish a behavioral baseline. Subject 41 turned his head toward the nearest emitter when the first pulse played. He held still. He then walked toward it. Drevith noted it without looking up. He had seen species approach the neutral tone before, usually the ones with low acoustic acuity who were trying to resolve the source more clearly. I told him to continue to the second tier. The second tier is a contact alarm, the distress vocalization of a mid-range social prey species, which every registered predator and every registered prey species in the compact responds to identically, with avoidance. Even predators do not move toward the sound of distress in an enclosed space with no exit. The sound means something is being hurt, and something is doing the hurting, and neither condition is one you want to be near. 41 stood still for the first 3 seconds of playback. His respiration was audible through our instruments. Then he took 4 steps toward the nearest emitter. Drevith set down his stylus. I told him to run the 3rd tier. The 3rd tier is what we call the persistence array. 9 emitters, cycling in sequence with a 3-second offset between them, producing a sound that appears to move in a slow circle around the chamber's perimeter. The sound itself is neutral, not threatening, but the apparent movement is designed to trigger tracking behavior and then frustrate it, because the source is always receding as the subject approaches. Most species give up after 2 or 3 cycles. They stop, they orient to whichever emitter is currently loudest, and they hold their position. It is, we believe, the point at which the brain calculates that pursuit is futile and conserves energy. The protocol reads this as the subject's rational ceiling, the moment they stop chasing and start waiting. Subject 41 followed the array for 11 full cycles without slowing. He was not running. He was walking at a measured pace, turning at each transition, tracking the apparent source as it moved around the room. His breathing held steady. His footfalls were even. I watched him through the observation glass in the dark, and I tried to find a word for what I was seeing, and the only word I had was methodical. He was not afraid of the sound. He was working on it. I ran the 4th tier myself. Drevith had pushed back from the console without explanation. He did not need to give one. We had worked together for 4 cycles and he understood what the session record was becoming. The 4th tier is an apex designation, a call we acquired from a contact survey in the outer passage, belonging to a predator class that sits at the top of its planetary food chain. The call is specifically a kill cry, the vocalization that predator makes at the moment of successful capture. It is not a threat display. It does not mean the predator is coming. It means the predator has already caught something, which is, from a behavioral standpoint, the worst information an enclosed prey animal can receive. Because it means the predator is close, it is active, it is successful, and there is now one fewer potential target in the vicinity to absorb its attention. Every species we have tested against the 4th tier has done the same thing. They go to the wall, fast, some of them vocalized. One subject, Casimir class, a species not easily unsettled, curled against the composite floor and remained there until we opened the hatch. 41 stopped walking when the kill cry played. He stood still for approximately 6 seconds. I had my hand on the abort panel. Then he walked toward the emitter. Not fast, not slow, the same measured pace. He crossed the 9 meters to the nearest active speaker in the ceiling grid and stood directly beneath it and looked up into the dark where he could not see anything. The cry played again. He did not move from that position. He was listening to it from below. I opened the hatch. He walked out. He collected his jacket from the hook beside the door. He accepted a standard intake form from Drevith, who handed it to him without speaking, and he signed it, and he left. I sat with the session record for 3 hours after that. What I know about the acoustic orienting reflex, what every researcher in this division knows, is that it is not an absence of fear. It is a competition between 2 systems, and the question is which one resolves faster. The fear system says, sound equals threat, retreat. The orienting system says, unknown source, locate before deciding. In every registered species, the fear system wins that competition. When the threat signal passes a certain threshold, the orienting system is suppressed. The animal goes to the wall. In the human, the threshold is apparently higher than anything we have in our library, high enough that the 4th tier kill cry, the sound that means something nearby has already been caught, did not clear it. The orienting system kept running. Locate first, decide after. I do not know what he would have decided had he found the source. That was not data I was equipped to gather. I filed a 4-line addendum to the session record. I wrote it 11 times before I kept a version. What I settled on was this: the acoustic fear response protocol is not valid for this species. The test assumes that the orienting reflex and the fear response occupy the same behavioral lane and that one will suppress the other. In the human, they run in parallel until the source is identified. Remove the sound before identification, and the subject has no data on which to base a fear response. Continue the sound until identification, and you have given the subject exactly what it was looking for. Either way, you have not measured fear. You have measured what happens when a species evolves in an environment where not knowing the source of a sound is more dangerous than finding it. I recommend against running this protocol on a human subject again, not for their protection, for the integrity of the methodology. We designed this test to measure fear. It does not measure fear in a human. It measures something we do not have a column for, and adding a column for it would require us to reconsider what we think we know about why the rest of the galaxy goes to the wall.